now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the 15-minute show, part of the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. Today we're going to talk Noni Madueke. This is a player who has very much created division within the fan base. His transfer links have caused real outrage at Arsenal once again doing business with Chelsea. But we're here to have an honest conversation about Madueke, what he would bring to Arsenal and why the club want to add him this summer. This is a deal that's reported to be around £50 million, which is a lot of money. People will talk about a backup. Why do you pay so much for that kind of player? And we're going to look into that. This is one where I'm not going to convince anyone that Madueke is the right player. I'm also not going to tell you that he's a bad player, because he's absolutely not. We're going to have a look at what the data says, talk about his playing style, and look into him in a lot more detail so that we can actually make an informed decision on the player that we are potentially going to be adding this summer. So first up, it's impossible to talk about Madueke without looking at Bukayo Saka. So last season was very much derailed when Saka got injured. We managed to get through it for a bit, but then Havertz fell down. And with each injury, it put more and more pressure on those that were carrying the most minutes. We got cluster injuries. We really fell down. And Saka's impact was felt more and more. And even when he did come back, it was very clear that he wasn't fully fit and he was able to play certain games and he only had so many minutes in his legs. And we saw those minutes and that energy saved for the likes of the PSG and Real Madrid games. So you look at Saka's minutes played every season, incredibly high, kind of high 80s, early 90%. Saka has been an ever-present for Arsenal. 24-25, it fell to 50% minutes played for the club. And you look at his availability throughout the season, it was generally around the high 80s and above. So 21-22, he was available for every game. 22-23, 98% of the games, 92% in 23-24. And then last year, it dropped massively. He was only available for 63% of the minutes. And as I said, whilst he was available, he wasn't fully fit. And that was a big, big issue for Arsenal. That cost us heavily in a lot of games. And that is a big reason why Arsenal are looking at Noni Madueke, because there is a clear desire to protect Bukayo Saka. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to any fans. David Ornstein talked about this months ago. He has gradually dropped in that Arsenal are looking at right wing cover. Brian Mbeumo was a player that was looked at initially. He was judged that he didn't want to come and be a backup at Arsenal. He didn't want to compete with Saka. If anything, he's a player that probably would have been a very, very good fit because he can also play as a 9. But here we are. He didn't want to come and he is costing a lot of money. So we are looking at Madueke. So let's have a look at Madueke specifically. There is a lot of talk about where he will play. So he is primarily a right winger. He started 26 games as a right winger for Chelsea in the 24-25 season, scored 8 goals, got 3 assists, created 1.66 chances per 90, but just 0.29 big chances. Interestingly, there's been a lot of talk about what he could do on the left. 7 starts, no goals, no assists, and 1.37 chances created per 90, but no big chances created. So the numbers on the left don't exactly stack up, if we're being completely honest, and look at what he has done rather than what he could do. So that's the big question, is what he could do on the left. But actually, as a left winger, he's very much unproven at this time. On the right, you look at those goals, 8 in 26 as a winger. We have to remember this guy has just turned 23 as well, so he is a very young player, but he is still a work in progress. He's a player that starts regularly for Chelsea, and even throughout these links, he has continued to start for Chelsea at the Club World Cup. He is one of their best attackers, and that's something, if you look back on Twitter, on blogs, wherever you get your news, and you read what Chelsea fans were saying about him throughout the season, they were very positive about him for a lot of the season. He is a player that does frustrate, and he's not the most aesthetically pleasing to watch, but he is effective and he does do things well, and he is one of Chelsea's best attackers. But where is he most effective? I've said he is effective. He got goals last season. In the Premier League, he scored 7. The other was in a cup competition, and he gets 3.52 shots per 90. This is something that intrigues me. This is something that I like in a player. 3.5 shots per 90. This is much higher than what Kai Havertz gets. This is closer to a Viktor Gyokeres type shooting. And you look at where they're coming from. They're coming from inside the box, in the half space. Look at the areas he's attacking. This is something that I don't think Arsenal do enough of. And the data would suggest that if you keep shooting and you keep getting this many shots away per 90, there is a point that you quickly explode and start scoring a lot more goals. So his shots, what's really interesting here is he hit 80 shots last season, scored 7 goals. So the conversion rate isn't very good, but look at where the shots are coming. 48 with his left foot, 25 with his right foot. This is a player that is willing to go on both feet. And despite playing as a winger, he had 7 headers as well. Saka, I would say, probably had in and around 7 headers all season as well. Saka's not a great header of the ball, if we're being honest. But if you look at where Madueke's getting his shots away and where he's troubling teams, it's in an area where the half space is where games are won. So he does trouble teams in that area. They're very right-sided dominant, but he is hitting shots from the left as well. He is a player that wants to get shots away, and we will look at that. But look at his FB chart and look at what he's good at, where he ranks highly, carries into the penalty area. This is something that Arsenal aren't good at. Arsenal have Saka doing this. Martinelli tends to run down blind alleys, and he is arguably our best carrier with real pace and power. Saka's the one that's most effective with his carrying. But beyond that, Arsenal have a very, very strong group of players without many good attacking carriers. And Madueke ranks in the 98th percentile for it. And progressive carrying distance, again, 94th percentile. Progressive carries, 95th percentile. These are stats that I look at and straight away think, right, this is why Arsenal want them. This is where he would fit in. But the question comes back to, why 50 million? Because you're buying a lot of potential here. Although he is proven in the Premier League and he has been one of Chelsea's best attackers, it's just that he is not fully rounded and we don't know exactly what he could become. Shots, 96th percentile. But as I said, you look at his finishing and you look at his conversion rate, it's not great for a player that's hitting that many shots. Non-penalty XG, again, 94th percentile. So he does rank highly. He does create quite a bit for himself. But again, his finishing is a bit erratic. He does want to shoot a lot. But again, 84th percentile for successful take-ons. You look at these numbers and they're good. But there's things that aren't so good. 43rd for key passes. 63rd for passes into the penalty area. 49th for crosses. And we know Arsenal like to cross the ball. Through balls, again, not something that a winger may be playing a lot of. 13th percentile. And so these are the things that I'm looking at and thinking, right, I'm not sure about. Shot creating actions, 58th percentile. There's mixed things in here. They are the things that don't massively excite me. One of them is miscontrols, 38th percentile. I don't want my winger having a lot of miscontrols, and we're not used to that because we've got Saka, and for all the criticism of Martinelli, he's got a fantastic first touch. But where has Madueke been used? It's been primarily on the right. You can see his position chart here. 84% of his minutes have come on that right-hand side. So 2,046 minutes last season, just 14% of those minutes came on the left. And this is why when we talk about him potentially being a left winger, we are projecting. We're not saying Madueke would be a great left winger for Arsenal. He's a versatile winger. He's played a small percentage of his football on the left. He might have fundamentals in his game that would make you think he could be an effective left winger, particularly in his carrying ability, the fact that he is two-footed, and that he can really beat his man. But we are projecting because we haven't seen exactly what he could do in that position. And that's where the concern is. And this is why if this signing comes in, it has to be with a caveat with Madueke is a fine signing for Arsenal if we do our business on the left-hand side and bring in a true left-sided upgrade. Because in isolation, this is a signing that will rightly worry a lot of fans, because I've been an Arsenal fan for a long, long time. I've lived through a lot of summers, and I have never seen Arsenal go out and buy 3 attackers in one window, plus a player like Zubimendi. What we're asking this summer is a lot. So this is why this signing is causing a lot of concern, because his minutes have come in the position that Saka has played in, and that's fine. You need quality rotation options, backups, whatever you want to call them. Liverpool have paid 45, 50 million for these players repeatedly, as have City, as have Chelsea. Arsenal are obsessed with cheap backups. I've heard Johan Bakayoko be listed as an option. This is a guy that wasn't playing for PSV last season. He was on the bench a lot. If you're talking about who's a better footballer, Madueke takes that all day long. Bakayoko is a player that would be a backup. He would be a Reece Nelson. He wouldn't get minutes. And what Arsenal need in this position is someone that can actually take and compete with Saka and offer minutes around the pitch. So Madueke really does fit that. But there is a dirty feeling that it's another Chelsea player. But I mentioned where he plays. This is an example. You can see his position in here in that right half space coming infield. We see Saka in this position a lot. But what's interesting at the beginning of last season, and this is a game where he scored a hat trick, Madueke was coming infield to the half space a lot. Cole Palmer playing very close to him. And Chelsea were not facing low blocks at that point. They were still a very messy team. As the season went on, teams started to sit a lot deeper against Chelsea. So Madueke has a lot of experience in playing against low blocks. But earlier in the season, he had a lot of space to run into. Think of Arsenal in early 22-23, even the season before that, 21-22, when we had space to play in. Suddenly, by midway through 22-23, the low blocks started and they've never gone away. But I mentioned his ability to play on both wings. What's interesting is this is an example of him on the left at the Club World Cup. Look how deep he is to the touchline. He's very, very wide. And this is something that Madueke is very good at. He stands his man up, he puts his foot on the ball, he slows play right down, and then he just bursts forward. He's got this big, powerful acceleration where he can fly past his man from a standing start. And again, Saka can do that. Martinelli's not great at that. Martinelli's got fantastic acceleration, but his decision making and his power to get past the man isn't always great. He faces them up, and then we see him coming back. It's almost like his confidence is gone in that area. For all Madueke's faults, he is not a player that's ever shy of confidence. And again, I mentioned the touchline hugging. This is an example of when Chelsea played Arsenal last season. This time he's on the right. Look how far he is out wide. He's very much hugging the touchline. And Arteta likes this. He likes players giving Arsenal real width. Madueke can do that. He can play on the touchline on either side. And he can also come into the half space and comfortably play infield as a more interior winger that really carries the ball and likes to get shots away. So he has got that. He's also got a clip cross in him the same way Saka does. But what's a bit concerning about that, with that being one of his main traits, Arsenal are sending a player in Viktor Gyokeres who's not known for his heading. So Kai Havertz could be the player that becomes a box crasher again, or Mikel Merino to really benefit from that. But in terms of a like for like with Saka, we see Madueke doing it for England because he can really give you that width. He can give you the dribbling quality. And he could give Arsenal something very similar in that sense and real genuine competition and rotation for Bukayo Saka. I mentioned dribbles already. Madueke's numbers stack up. They're very high. He's got more successful dribbles than players like Anthony Elanga, who has just cost 55 million. Mohamed Kudus is ahead of him, who's a 55 million pound player. So you look at the players that he's being compared to, Madueke ranks very, very highly, 104 successful dribbles last season. And you look at Arsenal on this list, there isn't a single Arsenal player in the top 14 on this list. What's interesting is the names on there. Most of the players on this list play for teams that aren't facing low blocks. However, Doku completely defies everything. 161 successful dribbles, and he's a player that I think could explode at City because he just keeps going and going and going, and he's got a relentlessness to his game. Gyokeres has that relentlessness, and so does Madueke. It's interesting to see him really just the repeated numbers of dribbles that he does every game. He has got that, but he also has a lazy side. He's got a moody side. He can throw his toys out of the pram. And this is something that Arsenal have to be prepared to deal with. Do we have it in us to handle a player like Madueke who can just at times become very lazy and really struggle to impact games? That's something Arteta hasn't had in his wingers. Arteta's clearly backing himself as a coach because he is one of the best winger coaches out there. But a big part of it depends on your desire to be coached. And that's the question with Madueke. Pochettino praised him after knocking him down and said that his attitude was fantastic to turn his time at Chelsea around. Then Maresca, he had a go at him last season as well, but then Maresca's continued to pick him. So clearly the attitude's better. And it feels like coaches think that Madueke could do more as opposed to him being a troublesome player. But carries into the box, this is very interesting. If you looked, the line going up is carries into the penalty box, and the line going across is passes into the penalty area. Madueke ranks so highly for carries into the box. Doku is the complete outlier here, which shows that he is much more effective in games than he ever gets credit for, and that City's poor form has probably been a big part of his development. But Madueke's carries are insane. He's much higher than Saka, who plays more passes into the box, but actually plays a moderate number of carries into the box. And Saka is the player in our team that does the most carries. You look at him in comparison to Martinelli, who has around 2.4 per game. Madueke is talking about 4 carries into the penalty box per 90, which is insane. That running power and that line breaking, game breaking quality, that's something we don't have in a player. And this is why I see this as a fit. He's a player that I rate Madueke very highly. I have trouble with this signing because of the timing of it and because what I think it could do elsewhere. I fear for the knock-on effects of this signing, but purely in isolation, I think Madueke is a player that could explode very soon. And it's worth noting that Chelsea are still playing him. I've said this already. It's Madueke pushing for this move, not Chelsea pushing to sell him. And his carries into the box. Look at what he does. He shoots and he creates chances. Where are they coming from? Again, right-hand side, starting from the touchline. He's carrying the ball infield, and he either wants to get a cross in or a shot away. What's interesting is look at the number of chances created and look at the number of shots. He's more shot happy than he is chance creator. And that's something, again, that Arsenal don't have a huge amount of. Martinelli runs into blind alleys. He doesn't get a shot away. He doesn't get a cross in. And it frustrates everyone. With Madueke, he's a player that will get one or the other way. He does get his action out. And this is why I think Madueke is a player that could really explode, because all these carries are 5 meters or more. That's a considerable distance when you have to beat your man. And Arsenal don't have this quality in the squad right now. But there are frustrations here. This is an example of him wanting to get his shot away. You see him in the first graphic. He's carrying the ball into the box. Second one, you see Milo Gusto has just passed him. The obvious pass is to slide Gusto in. What does Madueke do? He takes it onto his right foot and he gets a shot. On this occasion, it's a very, very effective shot. Will Arteta want that, or will Arteta want him to go for the safer, higher impact option of playing the fullback in? That is a big question, and that's something that remains to be seen, because it's a part of his game that when he gets the shot away, great. And what I really like about this is the kind of confidence to back yourself on your weaker foot, because other than Saka, I don't see enough of that in the Arsenal team. And Odegaard has this as well, where he wants to be on his left all the time. Madueke is more of an ugly duckling. He gets the ball and he wants to just be effective rather than how it looks. And that is something that I really like about him. And he's got a big frame, strength, power, and the ability to spring away from his man. So again, that's something that we don't have a lot of. This is another example. He gets the ball. You can see it. He's kind of facing up to his man. On this occasion, he wants onto his stronger foot, gets the ball, cuts back, bends it into the corner and scores. Very, very effective in this position. We know Saka can do this. What's interesting here, again, I come back to Chelsea and low blocks. With Arsenal, you don't see us in this position very often, but we would also be much more settled in our build-up. We'd have more players around him in this position. And Madueke is a very good carrier, so he is someone that could spring transitions for us and really get us going on the counter in the way we don't have right now. But again, I mentioned his work from the wide area and passes. Where does he progress the ball from? It's very much coming inside. Is actually the lowest one, despite being effective in that half space. But he does like to go outside, and he is a good straight line runner. And I've brought up straight line running for Arsenal quite a few times. This is something that we are not overly effective at. So again, with Madueke, that game break and that he can just run through a mid block, this is something that I see as a good fit. But again, it comes back to that left wing. What does this signing mean for other positions? If we sign Madueke, who do we not sign? Who do we compromise on? And again, his shots, look at his progress from one season to another. You look at his non-penalty shots, they've gone up. His XG per shot has more than doubled from 23-24 to 24-25. He's gone from 2.6 shots per 90 to 3.5 shots per 90. People will call that greedy, but actually that's quite a big increase. That's over 0.9 shots per game, almost a shot per game that he's taken extra. One of the things that has changed is Chelsea changed manager. Madueke is more than likely being coached to shoot more. He's being asked to do that more. And that's something that I would always say, right, what is the ask? How are the team playing? And why have these stats suddenly changed? A big part of this will be age increase, but that's a big increase. Not even forwards don't often, like centre forwards, don't increase by almost a full shot per 90 just by chance. It's not natural growth. It's something that I would say this is a coaching thing. This is something he's being asked to do because that's a massive increase. And again, that's something Arsenal don't have a lot of. And how often do we hear fans screaming shoot at players because we take that extra touch in the box? But with Madueke as well, he does like to run in behind. In this occasion, Palmer is swinging the ball across the face of the box. It's Madueke attacking the back post, this time from the left. We saw he hasn't scored any goals from the left wing, so we know this didn't go back into the back of the net. But it's the intent of attacking the back post, because at times I feel our wingers don't come in quick enough when we've got a cross coming to pack the box and give us someone to tap it in. Madueke will be willing to do that. And this is an occasion again from him on the left wing, these runs in behind. Caicedo has the ball. He's playing in Pedro Neto. You can see Madueke breaking his neck from deep to really charge down the line and give Neto the option to cross it across goal and him to attack it either in the center of the box or the back post. Again, something we don't see from Arsenal enough, because Martinelli nowadays is running in a straight line. He's not coming in field enough. And again, that's something that I believe not to be a coaching issue, but to be a mentality issue with Martinelli. I feel like he's had a big drop in confidence and his attack and play has suffered. But the downside of Madueke, beside the fee, the laziness, the inconsistency, and the reported attitude problems, is his injury history. This, for me, is a much bigger concern than his football ability. He missed 7 games last season, and those games coincided with Chelsea's form massively dropping off and them struggling. Madueke was one of Chelsea's most effective players, and he allowed Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson to really thrive. He then missed 7 games with a hamstring injury. He was one of many to fall with a hamstring injury last season. And before that, he had illness. And then in his first season at Chelsea, there was another couple of injuries. At PSV, he had repeated injuries. I was actually quite surprised when he went to Chelsea because of these injuries. The fee they paid, I didn't feel that he was kicking on as much as I thought he would. I've been following him since he was at England under 17s. And at PSV, when he was leaving the club, I thought he was still a couple of years off being at the level required because of injuries, because he kept getting stop, start, injuries, good run of form, injured again. And at Chelsea, he's been fitter, he's been healthier. And part of this may just be natural kind of maturity with his growth, but he still gets injured. And that is a concern. He would be sharing minutes at Arsenal, so it's less of a concern. But at the same time, you are buying a player with a muscular injury history. But all in all, I said we were going to have an honest conversation about Madueke, and I wasn't convincing anyone that he is absolutely the guy. My opinion on this stands firm. This is a good signing if we do the business elsewhere. We don't have enough progressive carriers. We don't have enough game breakers in the sense that they can carry right through the middle of a block. And Madueke is very effective against the mid and low block. And again, that's something we don't have enough of. If you want to go over the top, he will run in behind. He will give you things that we don't have. But he's unconventional. He's not aesthetically pleasing. He doesn't have everything together. And he's a player that ultimately still needs work. He's a very, very good player, very, very effective, but there is still work to be done. And that's something that Arsenal fans need to be aware of, and I think very much are. The price comes down to the market right now. Kudus is going for 55. Alanga is going for 55. Whether you think he's better or worse than either of them, I'm not so sure. I think he's probably at a similar level to both of them. Mohamed Kudus is an equally indecisive player with his actions in the final third. He's a player that can absolutely excel and win games for you. He's a great carrier and dribbler, but he's also a player with a bad temper who can get himself sent off. He can, again, go missing in games. And most West Ham fans would tell you that Kudus isn't their best player. It's Bowen by a long way. So Alanga, great straight line runner, but very one-dimensional. I think Madueke is a player that has a lot more in his game. But I would finish the show by saying we have constantly called for a Bukayo Saka backup, and I'm not a fan of buying backups. Madueke is the kind of player that comes in and competes and wants to play football. That's something Liverpool have. That's something City have repeatedly had. That's something that Arsenal have not done. We've gone for bargain signings like Trossard, and Trossard is one of the few that has really worked. More backups are like Reece Nelson than they are like Trossard, and Trossard's become a major player for us. So think of the overall quality. What do you want in the team? Do you want a player that's competing, that can come on and win you games? Or do you want a player that sits on the bench, occasionally plays, and really offers Saka no competition or no real rotation option? Because if that's what you want, you go for a Bakayoko type player. But if you want a player that can compete, you go for a Madueke. But again, this has to be caveated with the line. This deal is only good if we do the business elsewhere on the pitch, because without that, this signing is a major worry, and Arsenal will have done a lot of damage in this window as opposed to a lot of good. But please give us your thoughts. Tell us what you think of Madueke. As I said, we want an honest conversation around his talent and not just about us buying from Chelsea again. That is frustrating, but ultimately, I would rather have a good player in our team than care about where they've come from. So give us your thoughts, drop us a comment, give the show a like, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks, guys.